For Azeroth!
Heyo folks, Dude here, and welcome to the next overview of the Warlock specialization. This time I will be discussing the Affliction Warlock, which is the one of specialization that I haven't touched in a very long time. I used to play some Affliction Warlock through expansion 10 because it was usually not the sort of specialization that most people chose. So it was always the one that I was most curious about due to its lack of, apparently, a currency. So it is now up again, and this one is probably one of the two specializations that is the least changed of the bunch. Though the talents have gone through something of a overview. They have, of course, made differences again, but it still pretty much feels much as it always did in the idea of the Affliction. So the Affliction Warlock is all about one thing: placing dots. That's their thing, that's what they'll do, and that's what they're about. Of course, they still have their demons, except this time around he should be a little bit more stronger, because he should be considered as a much more powerful version than the original. So this will be the one you'll mostly be using. So compared to the other two specializations, you might want to consider grabbing, of course, Grimoire of Service in this case, depending on your taste. But that's pretty much besides the point, so let's get over it. As I have said, the Affliction Warlock is all about one thing, which is, of course, doing damage over time. It is their thing, and they are all about the multi-dotting. So you basically have your, kind of typical things. You've got in total 3 ones that are mostly your Primaria, and the one that you'll be dumping your soul shards in. So that is among those that you'll be using constantly, which is Agony, Corruption, Seed, and Seed of Corruption, as well as your main damage will be Drained Life. That is their thing as well. So that is pretty much the case with that. And of course, as the Soul Shard Dumper, you will be using Unstable Affliction, which also, of course, is all in design with the entire idea. So you basically work this as you always do. Just like with a Shadow Priest, the whole damn thing is about you applying those damnable, is applying all those nasty amounts of, as you can see, of course, it is still working the same way as it has always done, and that will always remain as it is. As you can see, Soul Shard generation with this particular specialization will be considered the weakest of the bunch, which means that, of course, you'll have to reconsider some of the playstyle that you usually have. Let's get the pet back here for a second before we do anything else. So the tick doesn't... Okay, that's good. So as it works as exactly the same. Seed of Corruption still works the same. It embeds a demon seed in the enemy target that will explode after 16.8 seconds, dealing shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards and applying corruption to them. So this is basically mostly the cleaving effect of it all. So this is the one that you'll need for the cleaving effect, but you can still use it even on single targets. Next up is Corruption, which is as basic as it can get. It's basically just the damage over time. And then there's Agony. And Agony is the different one because it inflicts constant damage, because it is constant ticking damage, but the damage keeps ramping up the further its duration goes. So this one is meant to stay on as long as possible. And Agony damage sometimes generates a soul shard. So this is your soul shard generator, and when you get enough soul shards, you dump it into Unstable Affliction, which you'll then apply, and you do a large amount of damage in a short period of time. So that's the whole point of Unstable Affliction. Also, if this is dispelled, it will cause the one who dispelled it to be silenced. So consider that, healers, when in PvP. So if you're thinking you're about to get some some good stuff in, you see this thing on your buddy, and you think you can help him out with that, you're gonna get disappointed, and you're gonna get yourself silenced, which is never a good thing for a healer to have, particularly in, well, any sort of group setting. So just don't let that happen when you're facing one of these guys. So let's so that's the basic kit. They still have most of the other things. Hell Funnel. They've got their summoning infernals and doom guards. They have some still demon summoning. I'd get the Fell Hunter on it because, as far as I understand, as the description says here from the specialization, I did do a little bit of research. Summons the Fell Hunter demon to follow you and assist you in combat, deals increased damage to targets, taking damage over time. So it is a good idea to take a Fell Hunter in this case. So without further ado, let's get to the specializations, which will definitely be interesting to see. Now, the first one we've got up in this list is, in fact, one that is remaining in this talent, which is Haunt. What does it do? A ghostly soul haunts the target, dealing about 19,500 shadow damage. If the target dies within 15 seconds, Haunt's cooldown is reset. Its cooldown is 15 seconds, so basically this thing will always be available as soon as its duration has ceased, or when it basically, you know, whenever the duration is over, or when the target dies. That's what I'm trying to say. The brain, the mind, sometimes has some difficulty simply grasping such simple matters. So let's try this little baby out and see how it works. It's pretty similar in the way that it's always done. It is best to also apply it alongside this particular little effect, because, you know, it just adds an extra dot to the whole bunch. So that's basically what it does, more dotting for you. So although that's never a bad thing, it's not a necessity in general. If you like it, you can take this. While the next one is a passive, which would definitely be considered a more useful one, which is Riven Agony, which allows Agony's damage to ramp up twice as high. Now let's take a little look at that right now. At the moment, when it starts off, it does fairly ordinary damage, and as you can see, it keeps growing in damage with every time it does this. As you can see, it just keeps ramping up. Now this is good, but with this, it gets even more insane. As you can see, the ramping up just goes crazier and crazier with everything, and the whole point of Agony is to just keep reapplying it, so this stacking just gets insane. I don't know if there's a limit to this. It seems it's already at 20, and it seems to stay stuck at that. I never really knew how high it could stack, but 20 is the maximum. But as you can see, that ticking damage is pretty serious, so you might want to consider it. And as you can see, it starts, you know, generating soul shards at a pretty significant rate. Next up is Drain Soul, which replaces Drain Life. Drain Soul used to be the Warlock's usual means of generating soul shards, but since soul shards now are generated by other abilities, they've decided to turn it into this. What it basically does, it enhances your drain life and increases its healing effect, as well as giving you the ability to generate soul shards from this. So let's test that little baby out. So as you can see, the effect is still the same. I like the effect though, because it really gets the feeling like you're draining the soul out of the poor bastard you're doing this to. So if you like this particular specialization, if you just want to have an enhancement of drain life, that is definitely a good option. Any of these makes sense. It just depends on what you want. Do you just want an enhancement of your drain life and have an increased chance on soul shard generation? Do you want your Agony to just get more insane, or do you just want an extra dot to add to the whole bunch? So that's basically that. So let's get to the next one. We can immediately skip this mana tap. I've already seen this in the destruction video. If you want to see what it works like, please look at that video and first before, if you haven't seen that one yet. If you have, then you know how this works, so I can pretty much, you know, skip this one. Next, so let's get to the next one, which is Contagion. Unstable Affliction also increases the damage you deal to the target by 15%. So this is a pretty big deal. So this basically turns this thing not only into a high damage dealing ability, but it also causes your targets to take even more pain, which is only better. So let's try this little trick out, shall we? So we apply this, and as you can see, the damage even got more insane because of it. So this is a pretty sweet ability if you know how to use it. And it's all about the dots with the Affliction Warlock, like I said. It's all about this. As you can see, even their primary damage tool is mostly a channel damage over time effect. So that's a pretty sweet thing to do anyway. So it's a pretty good one if you just want to use it. Apparently I actually didn't select it. I have been talking out of my ass this whole time. So let's try this out again. We place this, and then we put this on, and as it should show, as you can see, the damage definitely gets a significant boost. Life tap still remains, of course. This is the Warlock's primary means of regaining mana, and then of course using Drain Soul to regain health. So that's pretty much the basic premise of it all. This remains throughout all the specializations, so that will never change. Next up, we've got on the level 30 talents is Absolute Corruption. Corruption is now permanent and deals 25% increased damage. Duration reduced to 60 seconds against players, because it would be ridiculous if Corruption was permanent, because then you just have Warlocks just running around with this little baby and they just start corrupting everybody in a battleground, and that's all they did, and they'd easily be on top of the damage meters. But of course, in raid instances, this can be considered, it's still the lowest damage of the dots, but it still does well if you can apply it to everybody. So as you can see, it used to be just temporary, and now as you can see, it just stays there. There's no duration whatsoever. So that's a pretty sweet choice if you know how to use it properly. Like I said, mana tap has already been discussed, so we don't have to go for that. There's probably a range limit to this, but I don't really have to show it off. Okay, so next up we've got in the level 45, two remain the same. One changes though a bit, but I'll get to that in a moment. Demon Skin, Mortal Coil. Again, if you want to know what these do, please check out my Destruction Warlock overview, because you can find what you need to know about them in there. Let's get to the next one, which is Howl of Terror. Let loose a terrifying howl, causing 5 enemies within 10 yards to flee in fear, disorienting them for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel the effect. So this used to be just a generalized fear, but now apparently it has been turned into something of a disorient ability. I say let's try it out. And as you can see, it is actually just still what it always was. It's a fear, and that's what it will remain. It is a fear. I don't know if there will be... Apparently it says so that it is a disorienting effect. So I don't know if that is the case. I can't exactly show it off with target dummies, and I can't be bothered to go and find some real enemies to test it out. I could, but I won't. If anyone really plays this kind of specialization, I'm pretty sure you already figured it out. Mostly this is just, this is usually a PvP thing, because in PvE these days, trust me, you're not going to get swarmed by enemy mobs that quickly. So this is not really that important. Next up on the list, we've got in the level 60, again, Soul Harvest remains within all specializations, so again, we can skip that one. So we've got Siphon Life and Sow the Seeds. Let's start with Sow the Seeds. Seed of Corruption will now consume a soul shard if available to embed a demon seed in 4 additional nearby targets. So this basically causes that it becomes a bit of a spreading effect. So let's put on some dots to build up a few of these and see if we can get some extra soul shards just to see how this little baby works. There we go. Now we put this one. So as far as it says, it should then and there we go. It applies that effect immediately to the rest. So that pretty much works like that. It's supposedly just does work like that. I'm pretty sure it does. Can't really show it off in full detail here, but that's just the problem with these target dummies. They don't really give us full opportunity to test out certain CC abilities. Actually, I never really picked it. God damn it, I don't know. What is wrong with me? Let's try this out again. So I apply it again, and as you can see, it immediately places it upon the others. I didn't show it off properly last time. Now it actually does. And as you can see, this can be pretty good for even more stronger cleaving effects. So that's pretty good, but considering how Seed of Corruption already works, I don't think you'll be needing it. Affliction Warlocks have never been much about cleaving. They've always been more about spreading these dots real quickly. So that's always been a bit more of the case with them. So let's move on to the next one, which is Siphon Life. Siphons the target's life essence and dealing damage over 15 seconds and healing you for 10%, 100% of the damage it deals. So basically, this is a drain life, but then in a dot form. This is pretty useful if you know how to use it. Again, this is basically just another form of haunt in a certain way. Like, it adds an extra dot to your whole rotation. So let's try this out. I place this, and as far as I understand, if we get rid of some health, as you can see, every time it does damage, I do gain back some health, and that's pretty sweet. So this is just adding an extra little bit of survivability. Within this list, if you take away Soul Harvest, these two both, serve their purposes if you know how to use them. They both, not unnecessarily will be using up something you need, even if it's single target. So this actually makes up for a pretty good balance if you just look at this. This one is found among all the other specializations, so this one isn't that particularly special. Next up, his scores in the level 75 has remained the same. Again, it's all about, avoiding or it adds survivability in raids, basically. This allows you to avoid, of course, more AoE damage, while Dark Pact, of course, allows you to, absorb some of it. So this basically stays the same. So I'm just going to pick one of them and move on to the next, which is, of course, the Grimoires. Unfortunately, in a way, it remains the same here as well. Grimoire of Supremacy, Grimoire of Service, and Grimoire of Sacrifice. Again, I've explained these two before as well in the Destruction Warlocks overview, so I don't really need to show this off. So basically, yeah, each of them still serves their purpose as they always do. This allows you to control Doom Guards and Infernals as permanent pets. This one allows you to summon an additional demonic pet to serve you, and this one sacrifices your demonic pet in order for you to do splash damage with your abilities. Anyone serves the purpose to whatever playstyle you want. I, in this case, would favor Grimoire of Service due to the... This is a preference, though. This is not an optimal rotation thing, I have to admit. But this is basically based on the idea, of course, on how the whole damn thing works with the Affliction Warlock and its Fell Hunter being better and more effective in this case. So I would definitely go for a Grimoire Service because you can even get an extra Fell Hunter out, or if you just need something else at the case, just get that one out at the if the situation demands it. So basically, like I said, it depends on what the situation demands it. So we're just going to grab this. These two will be placed here. We're going to move those a bit just for entertainment purpose, just for the sake of it. Alright, next up on the list we've got the 100 talent special talent tier. Again, this one stays as a permanent one for all specialization, which is Soul Conduit, which of course allows you to, which gives you a chance that whenever you spend a soul shard, it actually gets refunded. So this is pretty sweet. Now next up we've got the other two are Soul Effigy and Phantom Singularity. Let's start with Soul Effigy. Creates a Soul Effigy bound to the target, which is attackable only by you. 35% of all damage taken by the effigy is duplicated on the original target. So this basically, in a certain way, works the same as the Mage's Prismatic Crystal, but now just for single target. So let's place this guy. So let's take a look at this guy. We put this up in the field. Oh wait, I shouldn't have attacked because that puts me into combat. So let's take this and test this bad boy out. So basically, I place this on the field, and as soon as I start attacking this, so of course, as it would be logical, all damage that you do to this guy should then be sent to that thing. I don't know how much damage this thing can take, so basically this allows you to put even more dots on the guy. So this actually just ramps up even the damage further, making it more insane. So that's basically the idea of this whole thing. But if I've got to be honest, it just causes you to have even more craziness going on with the whole, it just adds another target to it. And if you had Havoc, this would be fine, but you don't have that with this specialization. So to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is useful for amplified damage, but I'm not so sure if I'm such a big fan of this thing. If you have permanent corruption, you could just leave this thing out and put a corruption on it, and just start doing damage directly to it. But I guess it just depends on your play style. So this has its uses, but you need to know how to use it properly. It requires you to constantly shift between targets, so it would be smart to keep this thing in a focus frame just in the corners, just so you can quickly switch without having to look this thing up on your screen. Alright, let's get up to the next one, which will probably require me to get a little bit far away, which is... Oh, this is going to make things a bit more complicated. That Soul Effigy is making things extremely annoying. Alright, next up we've got the last one of this particular list, which is, of course... How do you dispel that damnable thing? I don't even know how to get rid of it. It just doesn't want to leave. Anyway, let's just get to it then. Which is, of course, Phantom Singularity. Places a Phantom Singularity above the target, which consumes the life of all enemies within 25 yards, dealing a pretty amount of damage and healing you for 30% of the damage. So this is, again, is a life draining ability, and it is instant. It has a 1 minute cooldown, but basically it allows you to cleave enemies with a certain dot, which isn't too bad. But if you got this, I don't know. It's hard to say which one you really favor in this case. But just for reference, let's see what this thing looks like. Well, it looks pretty cool, and as you can see, it pretty much drains the life of anything that gets within range of it. Not bad, I gotta say. Don't know how long this lasts exactly, so it's about almost 15 seconds. It's a pretty long duration, so it could do quite a bit of damage in that time. So I'm gonna have to switch out this corruption stuff, or else that soul effigy is just gonna constantly do damage. So that I can give my overall view of what I think about this particular specialization. Now, of course, corruption should start wearing off a bit. Or maybe not. How do you get rid of this thing? Anyway, I think it's just best if I come to a conclusion about what I think of this. Ah, there we go. That's how you get rid of it. Never mind. Problem solved. Anyway, what do I think about this particular specialization? It definitely has less, you know, abilities than the other two specialization. But it's still not a bad specialization to go for if you're looking for something a little interesting to go with. It is simply if you like dotting things, if particularly you like putting damage on everything you can find. This is particularly a specialization that isn't about the quick splat, about the kind of burst damage that you might be expecting of things like mages or even certain other ranged classes, like probably certain specializations in hunters. This one is all about the slow burn, but they will burn either way. So this is basically this just takes space, this takes fantasy aids, and just goes ramping it up a little bit insane. If you think about it, if you go full crazy, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots you can place on an enemy at the same time. Well, not almost at the same time, but close enough to it. That is pretty insane if you think about it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. It does fill up your bar a little bit faster, but if that's your thing, sure, go ahead, go crazy with it. Go spread aids on everything you can find, because that's basically what you do as a warlock, as an Affliction Warlock. Of course, you got your little pet along for the ride. Now that's pretty much it. It still has all the other basic tools that you can expect from a warlock, with the summoning more powerful demons, the life tab, and everything else, the banish, and that. But it stays pretty much the same on most fronts, so nothing really special to say there. That's pretty much that on the Affliction Warlock specialization. What do I think of it? It's a pretty straightforward specialization to play, but still a lot of fun if you like doing this kind of stuff. So that's basically that. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Please, if you want to see more of these videos, go to the channel. You'll find more of these particular types of overview videos of the other specialization. I will be going through the others, if possible, before Legion, and maybe a few afterwards, but then of course they will be delayed due to leveling curve, because I want to do that at the proper levels. But at the moment I'll leave it at this. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This has been the Affliction Warlock specialization, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!